So today's adventure, well, it's an adventure that saw me at the end of the day in accident and emergency with a broken arm. And that's another video from the past which has been removed off YouTube, so I've gone back and re-edited the vlog, and it's a bike and hike, and it's into an area which feels really remote. It's not far, actually, it's in Perthshire, and it's not far from the A9, but to get into the mountains it's about an 8 km trek, and there's a good Land Rover track, so it's a bit of a bike and hike. I took the bike in and what have you. But as you'll see shortly, I ended up coming off my bike on the way in, which I'll explain in a wee while. And I continued on with a broken arm. I didn't realise it was broken at the time, but by the end of the day, or the end of the trek, I certainly had a good idea that I'd done myself some damage, shall we say. So let's have a look. Maybe the message from this video is maybe turn back if you if you fall off your bike, but I'll come on to why I didn't in the video. So let's get cracked on. Here's me leaving the car at the side of the A9 and getting ready for a good day ahead, and it was looking promising. So I left the car and it was at the side of the A9, and things were looking pretty promising. It was pretty early and the sun hadn't fully risen yet, and usually this would be the most dangerous part of the day, crossing the busy dual carriageway with the cars speeding northwards and back down south as well. But before long I found myself safely on the other side and on my way up the track on my mountain bike. Things were looking pretty good as I made my way up the glen, and you can see the sun was just starting to illuminate the hills, and I was really dead keen to get out of this wee trough because I couldn't see the sunrise to my right, so I put my foot down in my bid to get some views of that sunrise. Right, so you can see what a beautiful dawn sky it was, and I was cycling along the glen, and just after that last point that you've seen, I was in this sort of just a wee depression, and I was keen to get through that because it was quite enclosed and I couldn't see where the sun was going to be rising. So I put my foot down and I was looking over my shoulder at the sky, and the next thing I know I hit the ground hard, and it was one of those where I lay there thinking, oh, have I done anything serious, and looked around, sort of checked myself over, picked myself up and felt. I didn't feel too bad actually, and after realising I hadn't seriously hurt myself, the next thing, even though I was in the middle of nowhere, I was looking around to make sure nobody had seen me falling off. Vanity, I tell you, vanity. But yeah, just after here I got back on the bike, and it wasn't too bad. The adrenaline must have been pumping, but I did notice a lot of pain when I put any force down onto the handlebar. So from now on in you might see me nursing a sore elbow, but at this point I didn't have any inclination that it was broken. I just thought I'd bruised it badly, and I continued on up the hill. But as the day went on, the pain got worse and worse. So let's see what happens next. At this point I wasn't far from where I was going to be dumping the bike anyway, and another reason I carried on up the hill. So let's get cracked on and see how it goes. After falling off the bike, I got back on and cycled with one hand up to the point where I was going to be leaving the bike, which wasn't too far away, and I started up the hill, and at this point the pain wasn't too bad, but I could certainly feel it. What was keeping my mind occupied away from that pain though was the sound of the stags roaring away. I've never seen so many or heard so many stags in all my days. As I headed further up the hill, the pain in my elbow was getting worse, but there was more and more stags just appearing. Over every rise that I seemed to go over, there was a herd of deer and a stag looking after them. And Yeah, they were allowing me to get quite close. It was rutting season, so they obviously had other things in their minds. But some of them, when they did eventually see me, sort of trotted on and made an effort to get away. But it wouldn't be long before I walked on a bit further, and another one would appear. And yeah, it was amazing. As I said before, I don't think I've had an experience where I've seen so many deer or got so close to them. It really was a special thing to behold. There's a beautiful. There's Andun across the loch. It's my second corb of the day. Over the back down toward the gate. Beautiful. So the two corbets I was going up today kind of flank a pass, and it's called the Gake Pass. It's an ancient drover's pass where they used to drive the cattle through the Highlands. Anyway, the top of these hills are fairly flat, with these steep sides going down to the pass, and I was soon making my way up to the first hill of the day, Muircregan Loch, which sits at 875 metres, and the views weren't too bad. After enjoying the views and watching the plains soar overhead, it was time to head on, and I left the summit and headed north, where I'd have to drop steeply down back into the Gate Pass before rising up towards the second mountain of the day. Down the Gate, for a rather steep descent coming up down the grassy slope here. Time for the poles to come out to be helpful. And it's certainly a steep descent from here, and I tried with my poles, but I just couldn't hold it with the arm that was damaged. So the poles went back into the rucksack, and I had to head down to the pass without them. So at this point, I was literally halfway through the trek, and that descent, these mountains, what makes them special are these deep clefts, very steep-sided drops down into the valley floor or the glen floor, or in this case the Gake Pass. And at this point I was crossing the outflow from the loch, and it was a steep pull up the second corbett of the day, and I was feeling the pain now. It was it was quite sore, but I didn't really have any option but to carry on, because at this point I was exactly about as far away from getting back home as I could be. And so I headed up steeply up to the second corbett and started to think about heading home and maybe making some phone calls. So I was making my way up the second mountain of the day, and doing very similar to the first mountain, with steep-sided slopes and a flat summit. And I placed my camera down for that usual shot of me walking to the summit cairn, but as I did so, I noticed out the side of my eye, yep, you can guess it, I was being watched, and there was a stag just over on the other side of the plateau that he'd seen me long before I'd seen him. And I sat and watched him for a wee while before heading on to the small summit cairn of Andun. After enjoying the summit views, I headed on a wee bit further to there's a larger cairn that sits at the side of the plateau just before the hill drops back down to the lowlands. And I headed past that, and I was soon dropping steeply down, and the next task was to try and remember where I'd left the bike. And back to, hopefully, the bike, and it's there. Excellent. Now way down there to go. So I'd made it back to the bike after going round the hills, and what a fine brace of hills these are. I can't recommend them enough. You get a real feeling of remoteness when you're out here. It's quite a long walk in. Anyway, so I was back at the bike, and I wish I'd filmed more of this. I suppose you do see it in the next bit, but what doesn't come across is how difficult it is to get up and riding on a bike one-handed, because by this point this arm had just seized up. I couldn't straighten it without being in a lot of pain, and any sort of weight pushing down on the handlebars was excruciating by this point. So getting onto the bike and starting riding was a real issue. Once I was riding on the track and it got a bit of momentum, riding one-handed wasn't an issue at all, but getting onto the bike and getting going, I think it took me quite a few times, and yeah, to say that I swore a lot would be an understatement by this point. So here I am on the final part of the journey, heading back down to the car with my one-handed bike riding technique. Not to be recommended. So you can see my improvised method for getting the bike going. I couldn't grasp the handlebar, so I rested my forearm on it and eventually managed to get going. And it was fine. Well, it was fine until I hit any rocky spots. And these rocky spots required both hands on the handlebars, and it was blooming sore. But on the smoother parts, the one-handed bike riding technique was fine, and I was making slow progress back down the glen towards the car. And eventually I made it back down to that busy A9, and I tell you, I was super glad when I got there. It had been a bit of a trek and a sore cycle coming back down the glen, and I made my way across the A9 again, back to the car, ready to head back down the road. So there we go, I got back to the car, and it was a bit of an endurance test. I mean, this wasn't a serious injury, it could be a lot worse, and it just shows you how easily things can happen to you in the hills, just one slip. With hindsight, I would have turned back as soon as I'd done it, knowing what I know now. There was some steep-sided glens there, and I could only use one pole, if any at all. And had I slipped further on, it could have been a lot worse. I was in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, so I got back to the car, struggled with getting the bike back into the boot, and started to make some phone calls. I was lucky that the car that I had, it's a company car and it's an automatic, so I didn't have to use my broken arm to change the gears, and phoned up my wife, and she said we'd discuss it. She kind of laughed at me to start off with, but when I got home it was quite swollen, and we ended up going to the local hospital, and the A&E department x-rayed it, and there was a fracture in the upper part of my, I don't know what you call that bone, radius, humerus, I should know this. But they think when I'd fallen, I must have put my arm down, and that's quite a common injury when you come off a bike. You put your arm down to break your fall, and what can sometimes happen is either your wrist will break, or the shock will transfer up the arm, and it can affect the upper bones and the elbow. Anyway, that's what happened to me, and I spent the next, 3 or 4 weeks with my arm in a sling, which was a bit of a pain. So that was it. That was my trip. This was back in 2012 it was actually. So I hope you've enjoyed the re-edit. I mean, those deer that day, that's the other, apart from the pain in my arm, the other defining memory I have of this trip was those deers and them roaring away. I've never seen so many deer in my life. It was fantastic. So anyway, once again, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you perhaps on Sunday or next Wednesday for another vlog. See you then.